Dear friends, welcome to today's program at the Home of Harmony. On behalf of the Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago, we are really delighted today to welcome Reverend GYOSHIN Laurel Ross as our guest speaker. GYOSHIN Laurel Ross is a priest at Ancient Dragon Zen Gate, an active SOTO Zen temple in Chicago. She has practiced Zazen, a Zen meditation performed in the lotus position for over 2 decades. Since 1999, in 2014, Laurel was ordained as a priest by Taijen Leeton, the guiding teacher at Ancient Dragon. Laurel is an active Sangha member at Ancient Dragon and has served in different capacities as Ino, meaning supervisor of medical hall, head Doan, and assistant Tenzo. She has also been assistant director and board member. She leads regular seasonal haiku walks for the Sangha. Many of the terms are new to us, and we hope that Reverend Laurel will explain those during her presentation. Before joining the Sangha, Laurel had been the Urban Conservation Director at Chicago's Field Museum, a position she retired from in 2013. Now she remains a research associate there. Laurel is active in conserving natural areas in the Chicago region as a volunteer prairie restoration steward and plant monitor. Today, at the Home of Harmony, she will share her insights on SOTO Zen Buddhism, the relevance of an ancient Asian religion in 2023 USA. There will be enough time for interaction, questions, and answers. So please have your questions ready and ask when she offers to. And on that note, let's welcome Laurel to come on stage and begin her presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please tell me if at any time you can't hear me. I tend to wander around sometimes when I'm talking. It's an honor and a great pleasure to be here today to share some information about SOTO Zen Buddhism. This is a beautiful place. I used to live about 4 blocks west of here, but I moved 3 years ago, so it's a very pleasant surprise to find this new beautiful place in my old neighborhood. I would like to begin our hour together with a short period of silent meditation, just to bring us all together here in this room. So how many people here have done some kind of meditation? I figured you'd probably be some experienced people here. I'm going to give you just some general directions about the way we do it. It's very simple. There are many, many ways to meditate, but this is the way we suggest people start in SOTO Zen. So we typically sit on the floor on cushions, although people with physical problems or older people sitting in a chair is just fine. Today we will sit on our chairs. I'll sit here. By the way, I'm now 75 years old and I cannot sit in the lotus position anymore, but I can sit on a cushion. I need to take that out of my biography. Forgot it was there. So let me just tell you how to sit with me. Sit away from the back of your chair, so sit forward on your chair. You wouldn't be leaning back against it or slumping forward. You want your back to be straight. We say sitting upright. That's the most important thing. And relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. We do not meditate with our eyes closed. We meditate. We recommend eyes open. but not focused. So you can lower your eyes. You're not really looking at anything. Closing your eyes tends to help your mind wander, or you can get very sleepy. So we recommend sitting with your eyes open, but not focused. So you can lower your eyes. You can't close your ears, of course, but there may be sounds. Cars may drive by. We're just not paying attention to that. We're going to bring our attention to our breathing. So we'll breathe through our nose and inhale, exhale through our nose, count 1. Inhale, exhale, count 2. When you get to the number 10, start all over at 1. Very simple. You may find your mind wandering. You may think about what you're going to have for dinner, or what weeds you want to pull in your garden tomorrow, or something like that. That's fine, don't worry about it. But as soon as you notice that your mind has wandered, just bring your attention back to your breath, just gently. Be gentle to yourself, don't criticize yourself. At home, I would light a candle and light some incense before I meditate, just to get me settled in that space. Today, I'll ring this bell 3 times to get us to start the period. It'll sound like that. So 3 bells to start, and 1 bell will let you know that we're finished, that 10 minutes have passed. Any questions? It's very simple. All right, so everyone, if you would like to take your shoes off, that's fine. I would say put your feet in front of you. Don't cross your legs, just feet flat in front of you. And the main thing is to relax and to bring your attention to your breathing. I hope that was relaxing. Maybe it was boring or even annoying. But the centerpiece of SOTO Zen practice is called Zazen, which simply means silent meditation. And I wanted you to have the experience of it, at least a little, because that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about. As you saw, it's pretty simple. And if you have questions about it, I would love to respond to that. Hold those thoughts, and we'll have discussion in a few minutes. The title of this talk is The Relevance of an Ancient Asian Religion in 2023 USA. So actually, I'm not going to tell you what the relevance of it is. My plan is to talk about SOTO Zen, and then to invite you to share your thoughts about any possible value that you can see of these practices here and now. And I thought I'd begin by just telling you a little bit about myself and how I came to be a Buddhist priest. The vast majority of Western Buddhist practitioners are not born to a Buddhist family. They come into this as adults, and I'm no exception to that. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, and my parents were first-generation Americans, both raised as Catholics. But when I was a little girl, my father joined the Unitarian Church in Youngstown, and so I attended Unitarian Sunday School all the way through high school. And Unitarians, they proclaim the importance of individual freedom of belief. So most congregations have members from a wide spectrum of beliefs, and children are encouraged to study and study ideas of other philosophies and other religions, and eventually form their own worldview. So in Sunday school, we spent an entire year visiting other houses of worship to learn about them through direct experience. Not so different from what you do here, I think. So I enjoyed that experience as a child. I learned a lot about political activism because our church was involved in civil rights. This was the 50s and 60s when that was a very important social movement in this country. And we also learned about the transcendentalists, Thoreau and Emerson, and they taught that divinity is in all of us, and it's in all of nature. Thoreau, in particular, held the philosophy of living deliberately. And by that, he meant seriously weighing the moral consequences of our actions. So today, my Buddhist understanding of the divine and how to live a good life is really not so different from what I learned as a child. After I left home to go to college, I didn't think very much about church at all, and I got very busy with my life. And then at one point in my early 20s, my boyfriend and I signed up to learn Transcendental Meditation, TM it was called then. We're following in the footsteps of the great bodhisattvas, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. I did TM meditation for a couple of years, and I learned, it was the beginning of learning to value meditation, but I never really made a serious commitment, and I gradually stopped doing it. So my introduction to Eastern spiritual practice began with Aikido and yoga when I was in my 40s. And it's interesting how doors open when we're ready to walk through them. An Aikido friend told me about a Korean Zen meditation place that he attended, so I decided to check that out. And I just loved the chanting and the incense and the stillness and the friendly people. Everyone was very encouraging. And so I took a couple classes and I started attending pretty regularly. And continued to look for opportunities to learn more. And I sampled some other Buddhist temples of various traditions. So I say this to say meditation and study, it grew very gradually in my life. It gradually became more central over a period of about 10 years. So you may hear some small thing today that strikes a chord in you that you might want to pursue eventually, and if that happens, I encourage you to do that. The ceremony where one becomes formally a Buddhist is called jukai. And I made the leap to do this about 25 years ago in a Zen center in Evanston that practices in the Rinzai tradition, different from Soto, but similarities, but different. And in the jukai ceremony, we would publicly vow to accept the precepts, the 16 precepts, which I'll read to you in a minute, in front of others. The way you do in a wedding, you vow before others. You make a serious commitment before others. So I think of the precepts as not rules, but helpful guidelines for how to live a good life. And they're directly based on the teachings of Buddha, who I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. But they come directly from his teachings, and they come in many translations and interpretations. And I'm going to read you one of my favorite versions. This is from a Zen teacher called Norman Fisher. He teaches in Berkeley, California. There are 16 of them. The 16 Bodhisattva precepts. A Bodhisattva is an enlightenment being. We'll talk more about that too. So first, the 3 refuges. Sometimes they're called the 3 treasures or the 3 jewels. I take refuge in Buddha, the principle of enlightenment within. I take refuge in Dharma, the teaching, the understanding. I take refuge in Sangha, the community. Then the 3 pure precepts. I vow to avoid all action that creates suffering. I vow to do all action that creates true happiness. I vow to act with others always in mind. And last, the 10 grave precepts. I vow not to kill, but to nurture life. Not to steal, but to receive what is offered as a gift. Not to misuse sexuality, but to be caring and faithful in intimate relationships. Not to lie, but to be truthful. Not to intoxicate with substances or doctrines, but to promote clarity and awareness. Not to speak of others' faults, but to speak out of loving kindness. Not to praise self at the expense of others, but to be modest. Not to be possessive of anything, but to be generous. Not to harbor anger, but to forgive. And not to do anything to diminish the 3 treasures. So that's all 16. It's easy to find lots of versions of these online. I want to point out that for all of these, the emphasis is on what we actively pursue doing, the second half of the precept, what we actually do, not what we shouldn't do. So for example, to actively try to be generous, to actively try to be truthful. And there's a lot of room for interpretation in these vast vows that we're making. For example, my interpretation of the vow not to kill but to nurture life is to be a vegetarian and to spend a lot of my free time in the forest preserves and the prairies, restoring them to health. Others may do it differently. They may nurture life by gardening or volunteering at a nursing home or whatever speaks to them as a way to nurture life. So we encourage students who are planning or expecting or hoping to participate in a Jukai service and take these vows to sit with these 16 precepts and to find their own understanding of each one of them and to come to their own vow of what it means to them. Also, there's no penalty for breaking a precept. We all do that in spite of our best intentions. And when it happens, it's good to acknowledge it, to notice it, and to think about why it happened. Maybe to revisit our understanding of that precept. Maybe our understanding has changed, developed in some way. So these are living vows. I should say that students, Zen students, we usually call ourselves students or practitioners, typically would have a teacher, and a teacher would be available for discussing, exploring these ideas. And so it's not entirely up to everyone to figure everything out for themselves, although it is a big responsibility to work at your own understanding. But there are teachers available for helping to work these through. So I found that if I share these precepts with people of other faiths and traditions, there's generally a pretty solid agreement with the basics. There's usually no conflict with the moral guidelines of other religions, guidelines for ethical conduct. So I found this to be a good starting point for interfaith conversations. But of course, the precepts don't really say what we actually do in our religious practice, which I'll talk about next. But I just want to stop here for questions and discussion about anything I've said up until now. This would be a time to bring up any questions that came up during our short meditation period, or any suggestions you have, answers to the question I put on the table about, so far, the relevance of Soto Zen here and now, and anything else you would like to look up. I would just ask that you speak loudly. My ears are not as good as they used to be. So would anyone like to ask a question or offer a comment? Yes? Oh, she's bringing a microphone. Thank you so much. That will help me.
Now, I just wanted to ask, the meditation you just taught to us, is it same as Vipassana meditation?
Vipassana?
Yeah.
It's similar.
Similar,
Yeah,
okay.
very similar.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for asking. And there is a lot of overlap between Vipassana and Zen. I have a number of friends who are Vipassana practitioners, and we speak a lot of the same language. Are you a Vipassana practitioner at all? Are you? No. Yes. I mentioned at the beginning there are many ways to meditate. This is not the only way that we would, that a teacher might guide you to do a different kind of meditation, say with a koan, which is a teaching story, or with a mantra, or there's plenty of other ways to meditate, but this is really the starting point. And doing this regularly helps you to do the other kinds of meditation because it trains your brain to settle down. Human beings have what we call monkey mind. We sit down and then our mind jumps all over the place. It takes training, a little bit of training and experience to calm us down so that we can actually get a little bit of space in our brain for calmness. Yes, you had a question? Someone else had a question. Yes?
I'm asking on behalf of one of our audience, during the meditation, at the moments of meditation, what is it that you focus on? Is there any object that you focus on? Or what is the process that goes?
Yeah, what we did today is focusing on our breath. So we would bring our mind to our inhale and our exhale, and that helps us to be in the present moment because you can't think of the breath you had before or the breath, it's just what you're doing now. It helps bring your brain to this time and place so that you're living in this reality and not in some other fantasy reality that our brains are so good at creating. And that awareness of the present moment is, if we have a goal, that would be the goal. I mean, we don't think of it as a goal, but it is a very, very rich experience to be in the moment. How many people thought the 10 minutes, I'll just say, sometimes people think the 10 minutes, we usually do it for 30 or 35 minutes or 45 minutes. Some people say, oh my God, that was the longest 10 minutes of my life, or whoosh, it just went by like that. It's all in our brain. It's the same 10 minutes for all of us. And if we are at a longer sitting, so typically, we would, in our regular services, have 35 minutes of meditation, but we could have a half-day sitting or a full-day sitting or a full week of a retreat. Some people might go away for several weeks. There would be very different experiences of that time based on our state of mind. It's a very interesting process to get intimate with your own mind. We would think we would know our mind, but this process helps us to gain intimacy with our own self. Sometimes it can be unpleasant, because if we stop and just allow thoughts to arise, something sad may arise, or something difficult may arise, something we try not to think too much about because we don't like it. These do not last, but we allow them to arise. And I am not a psychologist or a therapist, but I find it very healthful to let these arise and let them go through me rather than pushing them away from me. It is my life, and it is I want to face what's real in my life. And it's actually a good step toward figuring out whatever that thing is. So, other questions?
Just a follow-up.
Yes.
So is it more like you witness your breathing, your thoughts? Is that how
Witness? Is that the word you're using?
Yes.
Yeah, we usually say pay attention to, but witness is fine. The only thing about witness, actually it's true of pay attention, it's not something else, it's you. So it's not two things, one thing watching another thing. So you do gradually become aware that this is your body and your mind are doing this breathing and this paying attention to your breathing together. And one thing that's very interesting, I mentioned long periods of meditation, and I also mentioned that I can't sit in a lotus position anymore. So if you sit in long periods of meditation on the floor with your legs crossed or kneeling or however you're doing it on a bench or whatever, you tend to start feeling some pain in your back and your knees and, and you would think that would be a really bad thing, and you don't like it. I'm not claiming that you like it, but it does make you pay attention to the moment. It has that redeeming factor. Did I see a hand over here? I can go on. I have more things to say.
Actually, just to continue, there is also other Zen schools who teach mindfulness meditation. Yes. Now, how is the SOTO Zen different, and is it same as mindfulness?
We do use the word mindfulness, and so I will be talking about some of that. But yes, mindfulness is at the heart of a lot of what we do, so that, for example, when we enter the Zendo, we would always walk in, stop, bow. We're not bowing to anything. We are stopping and paying attention. We are being mindful. We are bringing ourselves to that moment where now we are entering the Zendo. That helps to get us started on our practice of being present. So when I put on my rakusu, so I did not wear my priestly robes today, but I did wear my small sort of portable robe. It's called a rakusu, and every person who experiences Jukai sews a rakusu. It's sewed of many, many tiny pieces with many, many small stitches, and you chant for every stitch that you say. You pay attention to that stitch, and it's a training thing, training your mind, training your hand, and making a beloved object that you have with you when you're sitting. Priests make a very, very large one called an okesa. It took me a whole year to sew that one, and it was a labor of love. So I'm going to go on. I eventually found my way to Ancient Dragon Zen Gate, where I first practiced Soto Zen. And as was just said, Buddhism takes many different forms, and they can be as different from one another as, for example, in Christianity, you have the Catholics, you have the Quakers. They're very different. They're both Christian. We have similar, and I think all large religions have that. Our temple is only about 20 years old, but we're affiliated with the San Francisco Zen Center, which is one of the oldest and largest Zen temples in the US, but it's only about 60 years old. Both of these are very young, but there's a lot of history behind them, because this religious tradition began more than 2,500 years ago, and all Buddhist sects trace our lineage back to the historic Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived in India in the 6th century BCE. So the historical Buddha, the central figure in Buddhism, is not divine. He was a human being who, during his long life, he lived to about 80, he awakened to a deep understanding of ultimate reality. So we know this from his many, many teachings, which have been handed down throughout the millennia to us. And throughout that long life, he taught many of his followers a path to their own awakening. And this path is, it's usually called the middle way. It's between extreme asceticism, which he practiced as a young man, and indulgent hedonism. He was born to a very wealthy family, but he found the middle way. The SOTO ZEN sect of Buddhism, I'm skipping a lot of history. This emerged in the 13th century in Japan with another inspirational teacher named Dogen Zenji. And his teachings grew from a school founded in China a few hundred years before that. So Dogen famously said, "Enlightenment is intimacy with all things." So as an ecologist, I'm very attracted to that worldview, because I see all life on Earth as intimately connected, and also connected to the non-living parts of the Earth, like the minerals and the water and the air. And what Dogen taught, and what continues to be the focus of SOTO ZEN, is to practice Zazen, which we just did, silent sitting meditation. Unfortunately, there's this very common misunderstanding that Zen meditators are focused on personal enlightenment. They think and you see these in cartoons in the New Yorkers, you know, they're sitting on mountaintops and, you know, they withdraw from the world and they're looking for this blissful peace of mind and it's like of a Shazam moment. No, on the contrary, the point of our meditation and our study is to awaken from delusion and ignorance in order to find the divinity in ourselves and appreciate the divinity of all creation. So, if we can see and feel all of our intimate connections and live our lives accordingly, we are building compassion in ourselves. We are building greater compassion in ourselves. And we vow daily to spend our lives working for the benefit of all sentient beings. SOTO ZEN is part of the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, which focuses on the ideal of the bodhisattva that I mentioned before, the enlightenment being. So a bodhisattva is a person who is motivated by great compassion and has generated this strong wish to awaken not for themselves, but the benefit of all human beings. So if we think about people who have changed the world, we might think about Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Jane Addams, Mahatma Gandhi. None of them were Buddhist. But in our view, they're all great bodhisattvas with a true genius for making the world a better place. And it's not only social activism, but other things like great art that changes the world. So I would add Shakespeare and Emily Dickinson and Johann Sebastian Bach to the sort of bodhisattva dream team. And you can make your own list, maybe great scientists. And so these people were exceptional, but what I want to suggest is that bodhisattvas are everywhere, including in this room, and that we all have the capacity to be bodhisattvas. If we pay attention, we'll see that people do small and large kindnesses everywhere, all the time. And I think it's a wonderful practice to pay attention to these kindnesses and to acknowledge them with our gratitude. So last week, the woman who cuts my hair told me this story. She drove a stray dog 7 miles back to its family. I don't know how quite it ended up at her house. And she wasn't bragging. She was just so relieved that the dog got to be home. I called that bodhisattva activity. My new neighbor figured out how to repair the watering system in our little parkway garden, and he just fixed it. Nobody asked him. He didn't ask to be thanked or paid or anything. So I think if we acknowledge and appreciate these smaller acts of generosity, then they will start to multiply. And I think bodhisattva opportunities are always all around us, and we should not pass them up when they come our way. We should notice other people's bodhisattva activities, and we should encourage ourselves to act on a kind impulse if we have it. It's not a status that one attains to be a bodhisattva. It's really a way of living your life. So I'll mention another Soto leader of the past, Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, was the Japanese priest who founded the San Francisco Zen Center, and he said, "Strictly speaking, there are no enlightened people. There is only enlightened activity." So I like that distinction, because I find it inspiring, because it's much easier for me to imagine engaging in enlightened activity than it is for me to imagine myself as an enlightened being. So it means changing the way we think about our daily lives so that we're outward focused and we're looking for ways to help people. And everybody can choose whatever way we do that. People can be teachers or doctors or mail carriers or peace activists or librarians or poets, kind bus drivers. Shakyamuni told his disciples, "Go forth for the welfare of the many." And then he demonstrated that by his life of teaching and good deeds and his concern for the well-being of others. So we try to follow his example. So in summary, here's my explanation of Soto Zen. We're a subset of Buddhists who emphasize daily meditation. And meditation is not reverie or keeping your mind blank. It is seeking to fully experience every moment of our lives, to be aware of the here and now. Now, it is true that some people do have fantastic ecstatic experiences. You can get a lot of books about that, especially during long periods of sitting. Has never happened to me. And as I mentioned, it can also be very difficult. But there's been a lot of attention paid recently to the practical benefits of meditation. It's been proven that it reduces stress, lowers your blood pressure, helps with depression, anxiety, anger, and those are all good reasons to meditate, but ultimately we practice to realize our true nature. So the strong recommendation is we sit for some period of time every day. Everyone's really busy in this country, so 20 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever you can do. Most practitioners never even visit a monastery. But we balance our meditation practice with our jobs and our families and our hobbies, and we try to bring the awareness that we develop in our meditation to benefit the rest of our lives. So there's much more information about our practice on our website, which is ancientdragon.org. And we welcome anyone to join us for any activities. We also have online sitting, so you can go to the website and click into the Zoom Zendo and sit with us. That helps people who live far away. The place where we sit is in Lincoln Square. And a typical experience there would be 35 minutes of silent meditation, 10 minutes of silent walking, then a talk by one of our teachers with discussion, questions, discussion, a short service during which we would chant, and chanting would be, as it sounds like, speaking together the words of some of the teachings. And then we usually get together for fellowship, for tea and some kind of delicious cookies or other treat to get to know each other. Everyone is welcome, and on Sunday morning there's always instruction for people who would like to have instruction. Instruction can also be arranged at other times. So I would like now to offer another opportunity for questions and discussion. I'm never intimidated by silence, so I'm going to wait just for a minute in case someone thinks of a question. Well,
maybe you can tell us about the haiku walk that is in your...
Thank you. I forgot about that. Actually, it's 1 week from today. So once every quarter, that is to say winter, spring, summer, and fall, we invite people to take a walk in one of the local natural areas. We might go to a forest preserve, we might go to a park, we've been to some beautiful cemeteries, we will meet there, walk together for about slowly and relatively quietly, not completely silently, but relatively quietly, and just notice what's happening around us with nature. And so we might, in the winter, notice ice and snow and bare branches and a low sun and all the things of winter. Or whatever birds are here in the winter, different birds are here in the winter than summer. And then we sit together for half an hour and write very short poems about them. Haiku are just 17 syllables in 3 lines, so 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, about any particular nature experience we've had during that walk. It turns out to be a really good way to help people enjoy nature more on their walk, because they're looking for things they might write about, and they tend to notice smaller things that they might not have noticed had they not been looking for material for their poems. And we've had some very lovely poetry written by people who've never written poems before. Haiku don't have to rhyme. It's fine if they rhyme. They just have to be, we try to do the syllable, 5-7-5 syllable pattern, and then about what we've seen. So it wouldn't be about something you remembered from your childhood, but what we've actually just experienced. So it's another way of helping to bring you into the moment and helping to connect you with the natural world, which we keep saying we are intimately connected with. If that's at all interesting to you, you can go to our website and just say I'm RSVPing for the haiku walk. There's a calendar on there, and then I will send you the location of the walk. I usually don't decide where we're going to walk until a couple days before, because you never know if there's going to be a big rainstorm, then we wouldn't go one place because it would be too flooded, so I just wait until the last minute to decide. But it would be somewhere on the north side, not too far from here. And all are welcome. All who are interested are welcome. Thank you so much. I believe there will be treats now. Is that correct? I really, really enjoyed being here with you this afternoon, and I noticed that there are 2 other interesting talks coming in the next couple of weeks, and I may try to show up and learn about those other things. My Unitarian childhood still makes me curious about all other religions. Thank you all.
On behalf of the Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago, I heartily and gratefully thank you for coming over here and sharing the experience of the Jain Buddhism. The word Jain is coming from the Japanese word, is the meditation, what we call dhyanam in Sanskrit, and the meditation in English, that is Jain in Japanese language. It is purely based on the meditation. The Buddhism, there are 2 schools, Mahayana and Hinayana. The Mahayana, those who follow the old method of Lord Buddha, and Hinayana, they developed their own ideas mixed with the Lord Buddha's. So Yana means the vehicle. Maha means the great vehicle. And Hina is a light vehicle. It may break any time. So like that, they used to have like Mahayana and Hinayana. So the Jain school that belongs to the Mahayana. Meditation is a great word. Without meditation, human being cannot get peace. That is exactly the 400 years before the Lord Jesus, that Lord Buddha, he understood it, developed it. After the 200 years of Lord Buddha, another great mind, Patanjali, he developed a very systematic way the meditation process. Patanjali Yoga Darshana. Yoga means union with the main consciousness. And that is called the Patanjali. Yoga means union. Darshana is the policy, theory, practices. So that is the Patanjali Yoga Darshana. Human mind is made of 5 things. And the objects also in this world are 5. So obviously, the mind tries to go and enjoy the 5 objects. very naturally. So what are the 5 things? The Rupa, Rasa, Sabda, Sparsha, and Gandha. And when we go to that, who goes? Our eye, our ear, our nose, our tongue, and the skin to touch. These are the 5 ways we go, bring back all the information to the mind. That is called ahara. That is called the food. When we were reading the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says the father, the Hiranyagarbha, the first one who was creating, he produced 7 foods. And out of the 7, 2 he dedicated to God. And 1 for the ordinary people, for the general masses. 1 for the animals. And 3 he kept for himself. And that is the way it goes on. So these are the things we can understand. When I see something, if it is good, I feel happy. If I see something bad, immediately I feel bad. So that reacts. That's called ahara, the food. We have to be very careful about that. But it's not only the food that we eat. There is only 1/5 of the thing. But the main thing, by touching, by seeing, by hearing, by smelling, these are also should be controlled. So ahara shuddhi. When we purify this food, then our mind becomes calm and composed. The moment the mind becomes calm, we see the original source. And that is, the Vedanta say, the consciousness. What is Buddhism? The Buddha, he was a prince. He was Gautama. And he became Buddha, Buddhahood. That is a position. What is that Buddha? Knowledge. Buddha means knowledge. What is that knowledge? Knowledge of oneness. And what is that oneness? Consciousness. And what is the purpose of meditation? To reach back to that. And what will happen after that? Joy, joy, and joy. Happiness, happiness, happiness. Thank you, sister, for bringing back these memories. And thank you all for coming. Please let us join and have a cup of tea and more discussion on that. Thank you very much. Om, peace, peace, peace unto all.